Hey there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Thank you for coming back to my YouTube channel for another crafty video. Today's video is a little different. I am trying out the June SketchBox. If you're not familiar with SketchBox, it's a subscription box that you can subscribe to, get in the mail. It's got art supplies in it for drawing and sketching, and this month painting. My daughter had the subscription and she has had it for a couple years and has really got a ton of supplies, and then lately they've been sending a lot of supplies that just aren't her, her style, I guess. Like this month had watercolors in it. She's not really into watercoloring, so I was like, hey, give it to me and I'll play with it. So I'm gonna open it up and we're gonna look at what's in it. I'm gonna play around with it and see what I can make as a card maker. I'm not an artist per se, like in the sense that I don't really draw things and make art from scratch. This is why I rubber stamp. So let's see what a rubber stamper can do with the June 2019 SketchBox. Here we go. This is the June 2019 SketchBox. That art on the front of the box, top of the box, was created from the products in the April box by one of their subscribers. Pretty cool. This card shows you everything in the box and its price. So when you add that all up, the value of the contents is $33.48, and I paid $24.99 for this box. Also, they have an example piece of art and information on the artist who created it. There's this aqua board. It is really stiff, it's a board. So that's cool. And we have this Kuretake Zig H2O brush. Love it. And the tip is fabulous. Very, comes to a nice fine point so you can get in and do those fine details. Then we also have the King Art Inkline Artist Pen. It's 8mm, writes pretty nice. And then we have some watercolor. These are by Sakura Koi. And we have 4 different colors there, and I guess they use these to paint that. And then we also have Payne's Gray from Winsor & Newton. So we'll lay these all out, and I'm going to create a palette with each of these colors. And I'm decided I'm going to start by making some watercolor backgrounds. That's normally what I do watercoloring for, is to create backgrounds. So I've got some water, some clean water in a jar, some different size paintbrushes, and some watercolor paper. I'm going to tape down a A2 size piece of watercolor paper to a hard board, and then I'm going to try, well, first I'm going to wet the paper, then I'm going to try using that H2O brush to lay down some of this paint. I found this yellow paint to be very rich. It's like opaque a little bit, but then once you add water to it, it spreads out a lot easier. I just squirted or squeezed my H2O brush and water came out, and then it was much more translucent and flowed all over the paper, and I was liking it. So then I just dabbed up some of the excess water I had going on there, and then I'm adding in some of the burnt sienna. The yellow that we're using there is called deep yellow, and what I would call peach is called pale orange. So I'm just adding those in different spots and dabbing up excess water until I get a background that I like. And then I'm just kind of blending these out and just making something completely random, having fun with these 3 colors. I wanted to keep it warm, and so that's why I didn't add any of the gray or the green on this particular one. I peeled this off from my board and then heat set it to dry it. I do like heat setting it before I take it off the board, but I got kind of excited and forgot. So it just helps with warping. So there is my very first background, and then I'm moving on to background number 2. For this one, I thought I would play around with that gray. So I laid it on there and realized it is super duper dark. So I just went with it and thought I would play around and see what I could get. And when I got to this point, I thought this one might make a really fun galaxy background. So I covered the whole thing with that dark gray, and then I'm going to come in with just the green and the yellow and make some little color splotches. And the one thing about galaxy backgrounds, they look like a hot mess until you're done with them. So that's what's happening here. We're making a hot mess, and it's just fun. You should try it. So I always layer the darkest color, black in this case, or gray, add some colors on top. Usually for galaxies I do like purple and pink and blue, so this was really different, but I feel like in the end I really love the result. Then I'm going over the top of it again with more of that dark gray, and you can see how the color of the green and the yellow are muted now, but they still show through. I put down a piece of scratch paper underneath because I wanted to make splatters on here, so I'm using the same exact colors I used for the background to splatter on. So that deep yellow, the deep green, and then also the Payne's gray. And I just brought in like a really fine tip paintbrush. I also wanted some white, so I grabbed some white acrylic paint and watered that down quite a bit so it would have some of the quality of the watercolor where it's a little bit translucent. And I just covered this. I really like when you first begin to tap the brush, you're going to get the big splatters, but if you continue to tap it as the paint runs out, you're going to get that fine mist of splatter, and that's what looks like the stars that are really far away. So then I just hit that with my heat gun to dry it up, and then I felt like I needed some more black. So I brought in my black Licorice silk from Fun Stamper's Journey. I tried it out there on the corner. I really liked the look, so I just splattered that all over. When this dries, it does have a bit of a metallic sheen to it, so that's just going to add some cool interest to this background. So heat set that, peel it up off the board, and I love this one. This is, I think, my favorite. Alright, so on to background number 3. I thought I would make some stripes down the page with all of the colors. So I'm starting with the burnt sienna, and then I'll come in with that orange, pale orange, and then the deep yellow. One thing about the pale orange, it has like a milky consistency to it and almost a shimmer to it, I feel. It's different than the other ones. It's more opaque for sure, and it's, I don't know, I really like the peach color, and I played into a lot of that when I turned these backgrounds into cards, which will be on a separate video. So part 2 of this will be turning these backgrounds into cards. So I just heat set that, and when I was heat setting it, I hit it with a little bit of water too for some splatters. Alright, so this 4th background, I decided I would try and paint a scene. Now, I told you at the beginning of the video, I'm not an artist. I don't really create art from nothing. I like a rubber stamp, a stencil, background paper, but I went for it, and so I painted a little hill with that Payne's gray, and now I'm using the green and kind of a flat brush to create some trees. So here's my trees on my hill, and I just painted them all the way across, and then I'm going to come in between the trees and paint some smaller trees that look like they're more in the background, and they'll be a little bit lighter green as they're in the distance. And then I also painted trees on the upper half of the card also to be in the distance, just getting lighter and lighter as I go. Then I created a darker green by mixing a little bit of that gray with the green, and then adding detail to the trees in the front to give them more depth. And then I used some of the gray mixed with a tiny bit of green to create some shadows on the hill. And that is background number 4. Yeah, we'll see about that one. Alright, so I thought I would try some other techniques using these watercolors. I just stamped a little image, and I'm going to try and watercolor that using that H2O brush. I really love this brush. It has such a good tip that you can get in and do fine detail. So this is just stamped with black ink, and I am using the water brush And here first I was using the paint that I had already mixed water in. Then I squirted some of the paint directly from the tube, and so the only water that's getting into that paint is the water that I'm, squeezing out from the H2O brush. So that was fun. Then I thought I would try some no-line coloring. So I stamped the same image with some oatmeal cookie ink, and this time I'm going to be painting those lines in myself with the watercolor paint. And I am very new to doing no-line coloring, and I've done it mostly with markers that I'm very familiar with. So doing this with watercolor paint that I'm not as proficient with was a little bit scary. I feel like this is a great first practice image, and I don't hate the results of it, but I definitely would not say I have mastered this technique. But it was lots of fun, and with this brush I feel like I was a step ahead of the game because of the really nice tip. So I just traced that out, filled in the colors. I played around with tints and shades of that burnt sienna just by adding some gray to make a darker shade, and then adding some of that pale orange to make a lighter tint. So there you have it. He's getting all finished up, and it's just about layering on the color. If you have a wet surface, it's going to blend together. If you want to layer it up, then you want to make sure your area is dry. And if you're going to paint right next to a wet area, it's going to bleed together. So make sure that you're painting next to a dry area when you're moving on to a new section. Also, I wanted to play with that pen, artist pen, and see how it would look lining an image, and it worked pretty good for that. And then I love to do brush lettering, and I thought the tip of this H2O pen would be great for brush lettering, so I just played with that. I'm not sure if I'll end up using this piece right here, but I like how it turned out, and it definitely could be turned into a card. So that was another way that you could use the pen and the ink as well. I guess it's paint. So I wanted to try and see if that liner pen would bleed out if I was to draw and then paint over it, and it does. It is not waterproof. So I wanted to practice what I might put on this aqua board, and there's like one flower that I always draw whenever I'm doodling, and it's this one right here. So I thought that would be a good thing to put on this board for someone who doesn't draw really ever. So I just thought I'd practice on a piece of watercolor paper, painting these flowers drawn with a pencil, and see kind of what it could look like. So I used the yellow to paint in the flower, some of that burnt sienna to do the center, and then I'm going to outline them with the artist pen. And I feel like that looks pretty good. I also sometimes add a stem to my flower. So I played with that and painting the stems green, and I'm kind of getting an idea now of what I want to put on that aqua board. So I went ahead and opened it up. It has a really nice detailed directions, or it says tips and techniques. That's pretty much what it is, about painting on it, about how to get smooth washes, about glazing and layering, lifting of color, sealing it, what this aqua board is. It's an acid-free textured clay surface backed with ampersand's true artist hardboard. So that's what it is. But I'm sure if you are into watercoloring, you could make something magnificent on this. It's supposed to blend out really nice. It's really sturdy, so you're not going to warp it. So I was just adding a little bit more water to my H2O pen there, and then I'm going to color in or paint my flowers that I drew with a pencil onto that board with the deep yellow. And I'm just painting each one really quick and simple, not worrying at this point about any shading, and just filling in each of those petals. I'm trying not to color over the pencil too much because it could kind of bleed out the pencil. So once I painted all those, then I came back in with a bit more of the yellow to add a little bit of shading so they're darker in the center. And then it was time to draw in my stems. I thought I would do these in parts so I wasn't brushing my hand over part of it and smearing that pencil. So I drew in all the stems and all the leaves. Then I'm mixing some of that green with the yellow because I wanted a different color of yellow, or a different color of green. The green that's in there has a little bit of a blue quality to it, and I just wanted to create my own color, which is what is good about paints. Of course, you can mix them and make your own custom colors. So that's what I did here. I just filled in all of the leaves with that new color I made. And then I'm going to come in with that mild yellow, no, pale yellow, pale orange, sorry. And I'm going to do kind of an ombre technique for, I guess, somewhat of a warm sky behind my flowers. So I just am pulling the color down from the top and blending it out to till I have clear water. So I did that all the way across the board and pulled it all the way down. And I thought that was really cool. I really was like, how can I do a blue sky? I could bring in another color, but I really wanted to stick with the paints that were in this box. So that's what I did, and I was quite pleased with how it turned out. Then I went in and added some grass at the bottom just to kind of anchor those flowers down, and it's just a real kind of washed out look. So I'm doing that first, and then later you'll see where I go in and add another layer over the top to give it a little bit more dimension and texture look, I guess. All right, so here's the centers of the flower that I mixed a little bit of the gray in with that burnt sienna to kind of create a brown, and I really like those centers. And now for the scary part. I'm going to paint on some words at the top of this, and so before I just jumped right in, I thought I would practice on my watercolor paper, and I really love how it turned out on the paper, so I decided to go for it. And then once I painted it on here, I felt like my brush, it just had so much water coming out of it, I couldn't really control it. So the words on the final product are a little bit more watercolor looking and washed out than I wanted, but overall I was quite pleased with creating my own piece of art from nothing, as I said earlier. I'm not sure how amazing this is. I mean, does it look like something you could get at the dollar store and put in your kitchen? Maybe. But hey, I made it from scratch, and I think it's pretty good for a stamper to draw and paint their own piece of art. So I'm proud of myself, and I like how it turned out in the end. So that's what a rubber stamper can do with a watercolor themed sketchbox. Pretty cool. So like I said, there's going to be a part 2 to this video where I take those backgrounds I painted at the beginning of the video and turn them into cards. So make sure that you come back for that video and check out those cool cards that I'm going to make. Oh, to finish this off, I used some of those same colors and splattered on a little bit of extra color for some added interest, and I really love how that turned out. So there's my piece of art made with the hardboard from the SketchBox June 2019 kit. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will be back soon with part 2 to this video. Thanks so much. Bye.